Good afternoon, everyone. So, any doubts, any questions in whatever we've done till now? Any doubts, any questions? No? Okay. So, we were discussing section 62, wherein we have already discussed what are different ways of further issue. So, what are the three ways of further issue which we have discussed under section 62? There's one which is left, but we've gone through the other three. Can someone tell me what are the three ways which we've discussed yesterday of further issue of capital? Rights issue, ESOP, and preferential allotment. So these were the three means of further issue which we've understood yesterday. So today we're going to talk of conversion of debentures or loans into shares. So the next way of further issue is basically converting debentures or loans into shares. So converting debentures or loans means what? Debentures, we know that debentures and loans, they are basically representing something which the company has to pay someone, something which the company has to pay. But say the company is into some liquidity crisis, or the company does not have sufficient money to repay these debenture holders or the loan which it has taken. In such a situation, the company can convert its debentures or loans into shares. However, when a company is converting its debentures and loans into share, the debenture agreement or the loan agreement shall clearly specify that conversion was a clause which is there in the agreement. मतलब क्या? जब डिबेंचर्स इशू किए थे तब वो जो अग्रीमेंट बना था उसी में लिखा होना चाहिए दैट वी मे ऑल्सो कन्वर्ट योर डिबेंचर्स इनटू शेयर, या फिर जो लोन अग्रीमेंट बना था उसमें भी क्लियरली स्पेसिफाई किया होना चाहिए दैट लोन का रीपे लोन को शेयर्स में कन्वर्ट किया जा सकता है. सो दिस टर्म शुड हैव बीन स्पेसिफिकली स्टेटेड in the agreement which was made. So conversion is possible. Yes, conversion is possible. However, one condition to be complied with here is that it should have been clearly specified in the agreement. Agreement में clearly लिखा होना चाहिए that conversion is one way or conversion is allowed. Now, this was a general scenario, but it may so happen that sometimes the debentures or loan, they are owed to government. तो उस situation में क्या? Let's understand. So where any debenture issued or loan obtained from any government by a company, so where any debenture or loan has been issued to government, ये जो हमने case देखा, this is to any person. However, अभी जो हम बात कर रहे हैं, that is a situation wherein the debenture is issued or loan is given to any government by the company. Now here, if the government thinks that it is in public interest to convert this debenture or loan into shares, then the government may order to do so. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? The debentures are issued or the loan is obtained by the government from the company, and the government considers it is necessary in public interest to convert the debentures or the loan which was issued into shares. Then in that situation, the government will pass an order and will direct that these debentures और ये लोन जो है इसको कंपनी को शेयर्स में कन्वर्ट करना पड़ेगा. And this is only possible if the original terms of issue of debentures or raising of loan did not include a term for conversion. So अगर original terms में ऐसा कुछ दिया हुआ नहीं है about conversion, but it is possible even in that situation, गवर्नमेंट अगर ऑर्डर पास करे तो कंपनी ये नहीं बोल सकती दैट इट इज नॉट स्टेटेड इन द टर्म्स ऑफ डिबेंचर्स और इट इज नॉट स्टेटेड इन द टर्म्स ऑफ रेजिंग लोन, सो वी विल नॉट convert. So it is possible even if the terms of issue of such debentures or raising of such loans, they did not include a term for providing an option for conversion. मतलब क्या? अगर यहाँ पे दिया हुआ नहीं था ऑप्शन, मतलब टर्म्स जो अग्रीमेंट की हम बात कर रहे थे इन द फर्स्ट सिचुएशन, यहाँ पे जब हम बात कर रहे थे तब आई टोल्ड यू दैट यहाँ पे इट शुड हैव बीन क्लियरली स्टेटेड इन द अग्रीमेंट दैट कन्वर्जन इज अलाउड एंड ओनली देन कन्वर्जन विल बी अलाउड. However, if we are talking of this situation जहाँ पे by government orders the conversion is happening and here the debenture and loan are issued to the government, ठीक है. So यहाँ पे जब conversion हो रहा है तो उस सिचुएशन में गवर्नमेंट थिंक्स इट इज नेसेसरी इन पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट और कन्वर्जन हो रहा है, तो उस सिचुएशन में क्या है, इट इज this type of conversion is allowed, this type of conversion is will be valid even if that was not a part of the terms and conditions of the agreement under which the debentures or the loan was raised. ये पॉइंट समझ में आया? Is the first point clear? In this situation, whether debenture or loans they are given to any other person, उस situation में conversion तभी होगा जब यहाँ पे debenture और loan के terms and conditions में वो conversion allowed होगा. However, जब government को issue किया है तो government order pass करेगी and that order will be valid, that order of conversion will be valid even in a situation जहाँ पे I'm sorry, even in a situation wherein the terms of issuing of debentures or raising of loans, they do not contain that term. मतलब अगर agreement में नहीं लिखा हो तो भी ये possible होगा. Okay. Now, what if the terms and conditions are not acceptable to the company? मतलब क्या? Government has passed an order that conversion होगा, पर जो कन्वर्जन के टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस हैं वो कंपनी को एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं है. कंपनी सेज नो, आई डू नॉट एक्सेप्ट दीज टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस, आई एम नॉट इन फेवर ऑफ दीज टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस. सो उस सिचुएशन में कंपनी क्या कर सकती है? कंपनी कैन फाइल एन अपील विद द ट्रिब्यूनल. इफ द कंपनी इज नॉट happy with the terms and conditions of conversion, the company can file an appeal with the tribunal, and this appeal shall be filed by the company with the tribunal within 60 days of communication of order. Which order are we talking of here? The government's order. ठीक है. So government का order आने के 60 days में the company can file an appeal with the tribunal if it is not satisfied with the terms and conditions of conversion, and then the tribunal will hear both the sides. They will hear the company and the government, and then tribunal will pass orders as the tribunal deems fit, and whatever is the order of the tribunal shall be binding on both the company and government. And in case of conversion, the fresh issue of shares shall be deemed increase in authorized share capital of the company, and accordingly MOA shall be altered. So agar see, in certain situations due to conversion, what may so happen, say if the entire it basically says that in case of this kind of conversion, we are converting debentures into shares. So when converting आप shares issue कर रहे हो, so ये जो fresh shares issue हो रहे हैं, it shall be a deemed increase in the authorized share capital. मतलब in this type of conversion, whatever conversion is happening of debentures or loans into shares, we will have to issue fresh shares. So that fresh issue of shares, it shall be deemed to be an increase in the authorized share capital of the company, and as a result of which, since authorized share capital is increasing, we have understood under section 61 कि a memorandum को alter करना पड़ेगा, because capital clause states the amount of authorized share capital. So this is a deemed increase in authorized share capital, and as a result of this conversion, the MOA, that is memorandum of the company, should also be altered. Is this clear? Have you all understood this much?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'm sorry for my voice. So with this, we have completed section 62. Under section 62, we have understood what are the different means of further issue of capital. So we have understood rights issue, ESOPs, preferential allotment, and conversion of debentures or loans into shares. So these are the different ways as to how a company will make a further issue of capital or further issue of shares. Any doubt so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So the next section talks about issue of bonus shares. Can someone tell me what bonus shares are?
Ma'am, like issue of additional shares at free of cost
Issue
to
of
the
additional
existing
free of,
shareholders.
okay. So basically, you're not charging anything from the shareholders when you are issuing bonus shares to them. So when we talk of bonus shares, will you take some consideration from the shareholder when you're issuing bonus shares?
No, ma'am.
Will the company take consideration? Definitely not. Because if the company is taking some consideration, then there's no point in issue of bonus shares. And whenever bonus shares are issued, they are also issued in some proportion, say 1:3 or 2:5 or any random ratio, depending on how the company is calculating it. So whenever a company is doing bonus issue, say company has got surplus profits and company को अपने profits अपने shareholders के साथ by way of bonus shares share करना है, तो company कर सकती है. Bonus issue of bonus share is nothing but capitalization of profits. How? Let's understand. So what happens is, say आपका share capital है, equity share capital, say 10 lakhs. And you have general reserve, sorry, and under reserves and surplus, you have free reserves, say worth 2 lakhs, CRR worth 5 lakh, securities premium account, say 3 lakh, and revaluation reserve. Say this is 2 lakh. So these are the different amounts which you have in your reserves and surplus. Now the company wants to issue bonus shares. अभी क्वेश्चन ये आता है कि बोनस शेयर इशू करने के लिए कंपनी की रिजर्व्स में से कौन से अमाउंट्स यूज कर सकती है. नाउ डू यू थिंक द कंपनी कैन यूज फ्री रिजर्व्स? क्या कंपनी फ्री रिजर्व्स यूज कर सकती है? कैन द कंपनी यूज इट्स फ्री रिजर्व्स?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, free reserves is allowed. Now CRR तो हमने in detail discuss किया है that CRR can be utilized for only one purpose, and that is for issue of fully paid bonus shares. So CRR can also be utilized. Can the company use its securities premium account?
Yes, ma'am. It is mentioned under section
It
50.
is right. It is clearly mentioned कि under those 5 purposes, and under those 5 purposes, one purpose is issue of fully paid bonuses. Can the company use revaluation reserve? Now revaluation reserve, let me tell you, say asset का revalue होता है, amount बढ़ गया, and revaluation of asset की वजह से जो reserve create होता है, that is the revaluation reserve. So can the company use this revaluation reserve for issue of
No,
bonus shares?
no, ma'am.
No, it cannot use. So कौन से means है कंपनी के पास bonus shares issue करने के लिए? Company can utilize all its free reserves, company can utilize capital redemption reserve, and the company can utilize the amount which is lying in its securities premium account. So these are the sources from which the company can raise, or sorry, the company can issue bonus shares. So say company is issuing bonus shares of 5 lakh. अभी ऐसा कुछ 5 lakh, तो इसमें से कंपनी यूटिलाइजेस 2 lakhs ऑफ फ्री रिजर्व्स एंड से 3 lakhs ऑफ 3 lakhs फ्रॉम CRR. सो अभी क्या होगा, यहाँ पे 5 lakh बढ़ जाएगा अमाउंट, और यहाँ पे अमाउंट 5 lakh कम हो जाएगा. So that is what is happening here. The amount is shifting from the profits to the capital, and that is the reason why we call it as capitalization of profits of the company. So bonus shares are issued by the company wherein say the company has surplus profits, या फिर company has good amount of profits, and bonus shares are always issued in proportion to the current holding by the shareholder. It is not that एक exact number बोला जाएगा, number नहीं बोला जाता है, they give us a proportion that as to how many shares in proportion to your current holding you will be issued as bonus shares. And section 63 जो है, section 63 बताता है that what are the conditions and what are the manners, what is the manner for issue of fully paid bonus shares. So section 63 subsection 1, it basically says that company can issue fully paid bonus shares to its member, and it out of what it can utilize its free reserves, securities premium account, or the capital redemption reserve. So these are the three reserves, which three accounts out of which the company can utilize the amount and issue bonus shares. However, issue of bonus shares by capitalizing a reserve या फिर by way of revaluation reserve is not allowed. So revaluation reserve is basically कैपिटल रिजर्व के टाइप का ही होता है, क्योंकि दैट इज द अमाउंट विच इज कम इन द बैलेंस शीट आफ्टर रीवैल्यूएशन ऑफ एन असेट. So that amount cannot be utilized, or that amount cannot be utilized for the purpose of fully paid issue of fully paid bonus shares. So company can issue bonus shares out of free reserves, securities premium account, CRR. However, it cannot utilize the revaluation reserve. And also there are some conditions which have to be complied with. Now what are these conditions? सबसे पहला condition ये है कि ये जो bonus issue होगा, it should be authorized by articles of association of the company. So bonus issue has to be authorized by the articles of association of the company. It has to be authorized by articles. मतलब articles में provision होना चाहिए that the company can issue bonus shares. फिर उसके बाद it should also be authorized in the general meeting of the company. मतलब general meeting में भी परमिशन दिया जाना चाहिए फॉर इशू ऑफ बोनस शेयर्स. Also, the other condition which has to be complied with by the company is that the company should not have made any default in payment of interest or principal on any fixed deposits or debt securities which are issued. So कोई FD है कंपनी का, उसका प्रिंसिपल या फिर इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट में कोई डिफॉल्ट नहीं होना चाहिए. नो डिफॉल्ट शुड हैव बीन मेड बाय द कंपनी इन पेमेंट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट और प्रिंसिपल ऑन एनी फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट्स या फिर डेट सिक्योरिटीज. डेट सिक्योरिटीज कुड बी डिबेंचर्स. डिबेंचर्स पे इंटरेस्ट पे करता है. सी जस्ट लाइक डिविडेंड इज पेड टू द शेयर होल्डर्स, डिबेंचर होल्डर्स रिसीव इंटरेस्ट बिकॉज डिबेंचर इज इन द फॉर्म ऑफ अ लोन. So if the company has made any default in payment of either interest or principal amount on fixed deposits or any of its debt securities, then in that situation it cannot issue bonus shares. So ये हो गया हमारा next third condition कि the company should not have made any default in payment of interest or principal in respect of any fixed deposits or debt securities which are issued by the company. And also the company should not have made any default in payment of any statutory dues. Statutory dues of employees, जैसे employees की stat dues की बात करूं मैं तो आ जाता है contribution to the provident fund or contribution to the ESI fund or any gratuity fund. So these are all statutory dues which the company has to comply with, which the company has to pay. So company should not have made any default in payment of any statutory dues of the employees. Apart from it, if there are any partly paid shares, अगर कोई partly paid shares है, bonus shares जब आप allot कर रहे हो, so whenever a company is allotting bonus share, ये जो ratio होता है ना, this is in ratio of the fully paid up shares. ऐसे नहीं कि किसी बंदे के partly paid shares है और आप उसको bonus shares issue कर रहे हो. So when the bonus shares are allotted, it has to be made sure that the partly paid shares are now made fully paid up. And apart from it, जो भी rule 14 है, there's a rule 14. The conditions which are prescribed under rule 14 shall be complied with whenever a company is issuing bonus shares. So also rule 14 ये बोलता है कि अगर कंपनी ने एक बार बोनस इशू अनाउंस कर दिया, say on 1st of May the company has announced bonus issue, और फिर 15th of May को कंपनी रियलाइज करती है कि नहीं नहीं हमको बोनस शेयर्स नहीं देना है, लेट्स विथड्रॉ दिस अनाउंसमेंट. Not possible. If the company has once made an announcement, if the company has once announced the decision that company bonus issue करेगी, Company cannot subsequently withdraw it. See, we as human beings, we are very good at taking back our words, या फिर हम पहले हाँ बोल देते हैं, बाद में ना बोल देते हैं. We are very good at doing all of these things. But company ऐसा नहीं कर सकती. Company ने अगर declare कर दिया कि I'll issue bonus shares, और फिर बाद में कंपनी को इशू नहीं करना है, कंपनी cannot do that. कंपनी इज एन आर्टिफिशियल पर्सन, सो यहाँ पे कोई स्कोप नहीं है. अगर कंपनी ऐसा करती है कि इशू डिक्लेयर करके बोनस इशू नहीं किया, so company will have to bear consequences of that. So once declared, the company cannot withdraw the bonus announcement or bonus issue which it has made. So these are some of the terms and conditions which have to be complied with whenever a company is issuing bonus shares. समझ में आया? Any doubt? We'll have a look at the section also right now, but before looking at the section, any doubt? Yeah, any questions? Okay, so let's have a look at section 63, which talks of bonus issue. So जैसा हमने समझा that bonus issue can be made out of free reserves, securities premium, CRR, and not out of revaluation reserve. What are the conditions for issue? It has to be authorized by AOA, authorized in general meeting of the company. Company should not have defaulted in payment of interest or principal on fixed deposits or debt securities which are issued. No default in payment of statutory dues of employees. Example इसका EPF या फिर gratuity या फिर bonus, any other thing. Partly paid up shares outstanding on the date of allotment are made fully paid up. So अगर कोई partly paid up shares है, so they should have been made fully paid up. And condition which is being prescribed in Rule 14. Rule 14 क्या बोलता है? The company which has once announced the decision of its board recommending a bonus issue shall not subsequently withdraw the same. अगर एक बार कंपनी ने अनाउंस कर दिया ना bonus issue, कंपनी बाद में उसको withdraw नहीं कर सकती. And also say for example, company has declared a dividend. कंपनी ने dividend declare किया to its shareholders. अभी कंपनी बोलती है I have declared dividend, but I do not want to pay cash to my shareholders. Rather, I do not want to pay cash to my shareholders. Rather, I'll issue bonus shares instead of dividend. मतलब डिविडेंड देने के लिए भी प्रॉफिट्स में से ही डिविडेंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होता है. बट यहाँ पे कंपनी बोलती है कि यार मुझे प्रॉफिट्स से डिविडेंड नहीं डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करना है. इंस्टेड आई डू वन थिंग, आई इशू बोनस शेयर्स. अभी बोनस शेयर्स के लिए भी आई एम यूटिलाइजिंग माई प्रॉफिट्स ओनली. So instead of dividend, I'll issue bonus shares to the shareholders in place of dividend. A company cannot do that. A company is prohibited from doing this. A company cannot issue bonus shares in lieu of dividend. मतलब dividend जहाँ पे announce करा है वहाँ पे dividend ही pay करो. आप dividend की जगह पे bonus shares issue नहीं कर सकते हो. If you have declared dividend, you have to pay dividend. You are liable to pay dividend. You cannot issue bonus shares and say कि dividend का payment हो गया. So bonus shares cannot be issued in lieu of dividend, and that is what section 63 subsection 3 talks of. It says bonus shares shall not be issued in lieu of dividend, but it's permissible for a company to capitalize its profits or reserves for the purpose of issuing bonus shares. So bonus issue is capitalization of profits. However, just because you're utilizing your profits for issue of bonus share, that does not give you a right to issue bonus shares in place of dividend. So bonus shares cannot be issued in lieu of dividend, that is in place of dividend instead of dividend. समझ में आया?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk of section 64. Section 64 is a basic section, and basically it says that whenever there's any alteration in the share capital, the registrar of the company shall be informed about such alteration. So वही section 64 बोलता है. Basically says where a company alters its share capital or redeems any redeemable preference share the company shall file a notice in form SH7 with the registrar within 30 days of such alteration or redemption, along with the altered memorandum. So, जब भी company कोई alteration कर रही है, company will have to inform the registrar wherein the alteration is relating to share capital or redemption of preference shares. The company has to file a notice with the registrar in form SH7, and this has to be done within 30 days from the date of change, along with the company will have to file this form with the registrar along with an altered memorandum. And if there's any default in this particular situation, those situation may company and every officer in default, they'll be liable to a penalty of 500 per day. मतलब 30th डे के बाद जितना भी डिले होता है तो हर दिन का 500 rupees till the time the default continues, subject to maximum of 5 lakh in case of company and 1 lakh in case of officer in default. So basically the penalty is 500 per day till the day up to which the default continues. However, it is subject to maximum of rupees 5 lakh to in case of the company and 1 lakh in case of officer in default. Here, so this was section 64. Now let's start with another very important section, which is section 66, reduction of share capital. Now, if you remember, yesterday we've discussed alteration in share capital. What are the different ways of alteration? What are the different ways of alteration of share capital? You can write in your answers or drop in your answers in the chat box. Correct. So increase in authorized share capital, consolidation, subdivision, conversion of shares into stock or reconversion, and cancellation. So कल हमने देखा था cancellation क्या होता है. So that was the unsubscribed part. Unsubscribed shares जो थे उसी को cancel कर दिया. Now let's understand reduction कैसे होता है of share capital. So say for example, the company has issued shares, say 1 lakh shares of rupees 20 each, of which 10 is paid up. ठीक है, तो क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे 1 lakh shares of rupees 20 each, जिसपे 10 paid up है, which means यहाँ पे amount क्या है 10 lakhs. And subsequently यहाँ पे भी से बैंक में कंपनी के पास 10 लाख रुपए. ठीक है, सिमिलर अमाउंट होना चाहिए बैलेंस शीट में, asset side, liability side. So the value of each share is rupees 20. The company has raised rupees 10 per share on all 1 lakh shares. Now, अभी कंपनी के पास 10 लाख रुपए है, and ये 10 लाख is sufficient for the company to run its business and carry on its activities. मतलब कंपनी has 10 lakh rupees and कंपनी बोलती है कि ठीक है 10 लाख रुपए है, एंड मुझे नहीं लगता, वी डू नॉट थिंक दैट वील रिक्वायर सम मोर मनी. हाउएवर ये जो शेयर इशू किया है, दिस इज ऑफ 20 rupees, of which 10 rupees is called up and paid up. However, the remaining 10 rupees is uncalled. अभी तक कॉल ही नहीं हुआ, वो जो बचे हुए 10 रुपए है which is not paid up yet, there's no call which is being made by the company for those 10 rupees. And now company thinks that 10 lakh rupees is sufficient and we will not require any more amount, we will not need any more amount. So let's do one thing. And what is that? कंपनी सोचती है मेरे शेयर का प्राइस ना मैं 20 रुपए से कम करके 10 रुपए कर देती. Let me reduce the price of my share from 20 rupees to 10 rupees. Now this is where यहाँ पे अब क्या हो रहा है, पहले शेयर का वैल्यू था 10 रुपीज, सॉरी पहले शेयर का नॉमिनल वैल्यू था 20 रुपीज, and now the nominal value of the share is changing from 20 rupees to 10 rupees. So पहले वैल्यू था 20 रुपीज, अभी कंपनी सोचती है कि 10 रुपए का ही शेयर रखते हैं, वी डू नॉट रिक्वायर द अदर 10 रुपीज, सो लेट्स चेंज द वैल्यू ऑफ शेयर. सो यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, यहाँ पे वैल्यू चेंज हो रहा है, नॉमिनल वैल्यू ऑफ शेयर चेंज हो रहा है. सो दिस चेंज इन द नॉमिनल वैल्यू योर, दिस जो 10 रुपए कम हो रहा है, इसको बोलते हैं एक्सटिंग्विशमेंट. सो अभी वो 10 रुपए ना तो कंपनी कॉल करेगी ना कंपनी मंगवाएगी. सो what is happening here, there is extinguishing of liability on shares of the company. जहां पे paid up नहीं है, वो those 10 rupees are not paid up, it will not have an impact here on the balance sheet. balance sheet में कोई impact नहीं होगा उसका, there will be no impact in the balance sheet of the company. However, the company is extinguishing or reducing the liability on its shares. So previously the shareholders were liable to pay 20 rupees, out of which they have already paid 10 rupees. They were yet to pay 10 rupees. But अभी कंपनी बोलता है ये 10 रुपए मुझे चाहिए ही नहीं, और ये 10 रुपए मैं अपने शेयर का वैल्यू चेंज कर देती हूँ from 20 rupees to 10 rupees only, and I'll extinguish this liability, I'll reduce this liability with respect to the remaining 10 rupees. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, there is no unsubscribed capital here. Okay, if you compare this with what we have understood under cancellation, यहाँ पे cancellation नहीं हो रहा है, there is no cancellation happening, there is no consolidation happening, there is no subdivision also happening. Okay, do not confuse this with subdivision, cancellation or consolidation. This is not something like that, this is completely different. So क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे, extinguishment of liability or reduction of liability. So this is the first way in which reduction in share capital happens. ये point समझ में आया? And this can be done by the company only after passing a special resolution. इसके लिए special resolution लगेगा, ये ऐसे ही नहीं कर सकती कंपनी. Is this much clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Give me a minute, there's some technical problem here from my end. Am I visible and audible?
Ma'am, you are not visible, you are audible, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so I'm audible. Just listen to what I'm saying. There's some technical issue. Till then, I'll explain you what I was saying. So the first way of reduction of share capital is basically wherein there's a change in the paid up value, a change which is being made in the paid up value of the shares, and this change in the paid up value is ultimately leading to extinguishment of liability or reduction in the liability on the shares of the company. So यहाँ पे the 10 rupees which was reduced, it was neither called up nor paid up, and that is the reason why we call this as extinguishment or reduction in the liability. ये फर्स्ट वाला पॉइंट समझ में आया ना आप लोगों को? So we were talking of reduction in share capital. So पहला तरीका हमने देख लिया. Let's move on to the second way of how share capital is reduced. So first wala way is clear, right? Or do you want me to do it again?
Ma'am, like you explained about that reduction of like 20 rupees to 10 rupees.
Extinguishment. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
that's
Understood.
clear, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So let's look at the second situation. Now, what happens in the second situation? Let's take the same example again. No, let's change the example. The equity share capital of the company is 10 lakhs. This is divided into 1 lakh shares of rupees 10 each. अभी यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? This equity share capital of the company, से कंपनी के पास से बैंक में पैसा है पूरा 10 लाख का. Or let's change the example. Say company has some fixed assets. So whenever company is raising any capital, the company will definitely utilize it for purchasing fixed assets, invest in assets, and do other things. So company के पास बैंक में पैसा है say 3 lakh rupees, and company has fixed assets worth 7 lakh. Now the company realizes that company का काम इससे कम पैसे में भी आराम से चल जाएगा. Say company says, even if we had 7 lakh rupees, that amount would have been sufficient. We do not need this extra amount. ये जो पैसे है ये हमारे पास ज्यादा है. We do not need this extra amount. We do not need this amount in excess. So यहाँ पे company now decides to return जो 3 rupees आया है ना उनके shareholders से उनको, company now decides to pay off the paid up share capital which is in excess of their wants, which is in excess of the wants of the company. Company has received 10 lakhs. The entire amount is paid up. The share is of 10 rupees and the entire amount is paid up. However, the company now thinks that our work will be done in 7 lakhs only. हमारे पास 3 rupees per share extra है. We have this extra money. अभी extra पैसा हमारे पास तो ऐसे ही पड़ा रहेगा. We do not need this money. But if we return this money back to the shareholder can invest this amount somewhere else and utilize the amount. So here in this situation, the company, it decides to pay off the paid up share capital, which is in excess of its need, which is in excess of its wants. So एक situation तो ये हो गया that the company, it is paying off the excess paid up share capital. The amount is paid up. पूरा 10 रुपए आ गया है कंपनी के पास. बट कंपनी को जरूरत नहीं है तो कंपनी बोलती है that we've received 10 rupees from you but we need only 7 rupees, and for that what are we doing? We are returning this 3 rupees per share back to you. So here in the situation, what is happening? The company is returning 3 rupees back to its shareholders. So यहाँ पे will this impact the share capital? Share capital का amount change होगा अभी? in this situation, when company is returning 3 rupees back to its shareholders, will the amount of share capital change? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
It will definitely change, बिकॉज क्या हो रहा है, 10 रुपए मिल गए ऑलरेडी, पर 10 रुपए में से आप 3 रुपए वापस लौटा रहे हो टू योर शेयर होल्डर्स, यू आर गिविंग इट बैक टू योर शेयर होल्डर्स. सो दिस इज वन वे. अभी नाउ इसमें क्या हो सकता है, कंपनी, देयर कैन बी टू सिचुएशंस व्हिच में अराइज हियर. One is, the company would actually change the nominal value of its share to 7 rupees and state that take your 3 rupees back, हमको फ्यूचर में भी इसकी कोई जरूरत नहीं रहेगी. Or the second thing is, the company will not change the nominal value of its share. The nominal value of the share will still remain 10 rupees. And company bolegi, for now, we are giving you 3 rupees back. But in case in future, if we need the money, आप हमको वो पैसा तब वापस दे देना. सो दो सिचुएशंस हो सकते हैं इसमें भी. फर्स्ट सिचुएशन जहां पे कंपनी एंटायरली अपने नॉमिनल वैल्यू को चेंज कर रहा है, इट इज चेंजिंग द फेस वैल्यू ऑफ इट्स शेयर्स. So in that situation, once the company is giving those 3 rupees back to its shareholders, there will be no problem. It will not be called up again in future. However, there can be another situation here wherein the face value is not changing, but since the company is not in need of that money right now, the company says that, okay, fine, we do not need this money right now, so we will return this 3 rupees to you right now, or future में, in future, जब भी हमको जरूरत पड़ेगी हम आपसे वो 3 रुपए मंगवा लें. बट इन बोथ द सिचुएशंस देयर इज अ रिडक्शन इन द शेयर कैपिटल, बिकॉज जो अमाउंट पेड अप था पहले, उसी अमाउंट में से कंपनी शेयर होल्डर्स को वापस से दे रही है. So this is reduction in paid up share capital. This is one way. There is another means as well. Now what is the other means? Let's understand. इसी में एक और चीज हो सकती है. So this was where the company had excess money than what it needs. अभी second situation क्या हो सकता है? Let's see. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? The paid up share capital of the company is not being represented properly by the asset. ये जो है ये incorporation expenses है जो अभी भी balance sheet में आ रहा है. It could be discount allowed on shares. It could be any random thing which is appearing here. Could be the debit amount of the profit and loss account. Could be anything which is coming here in the balance sheet. So यहाँ पे ये अमाउंट जो है कंपनी को राइट ऑफ करना है, या फिर इस अमाउंट, नॉट राइट ऑफ बेसिकली, but the share capital is being represented by these kind of assets, and company does not want this kind of representation. The company wants to cancel the paid up share capital which is unrepresented, which is not represented by the assets which are available with the company. तो इस सिचुएशन में अगेन द कंपनी वुड से कि 10 लाख है, बट हमको सिर्फ we'll change the paid up value from 10 to 8. We'll change the value of the share from 10 to 8. Return this 2 rupees back to the shareholder. So in both these situations, what thing is common? One thing is common, and that is the money is being returned back to the shareholder, which is leading to decrease in the equity share capital of the company. However, the situations are different. One situation is where the कंपनी डज नॉट नीड्स दैट मनी एट ऑल. कंपनी की जरूरत से ज्यादा पैसा है कंपनी के पास, इसलिए कंपनी रिटर्न कर रही है. सेकेंड सिचुएशन वो है जहां पे कंपनी के पास जो असेट्स अवेलेबल है उनका वैल्यू is not properly represented by the equity share capital. We know asset side और liability side tally होना चाहिए, right? Balance sheet में हमेशा. So जो assets available है, they do not properly represent the paid up equity share capital of the company, and that's why the company would decide to cancel some of its shares. So this is another way of reduction in the share capital of the company. समझ में आया? Are you all clear with the different ways in which the share capital is reduced? Yes. So what is happening? Reduction in share capital. Reduction कैसे हो सकता है? First was extinguish or reduce the liability on any shares. So this is the first situation जो हमने समझा था. जो paid up ही नहीं है, आप उसी को cancel कर रहे हो. However, second situation में जो paid up था, हम उसको cancel कर रहे थे. In the first situation, extinguishment का जब हमने understand किया था, when we understood extinguishment वाला point, therein we have understood that this is a situation जहाँ पे the amount was not actually paid up. However, there was cancellation. So there was no change in the share capital as such. However, here we have understood यहाँ पे there was an actual paid up amount which was being returned to the shareholders, and there was actual cancellation which was, I mean, actual reduction in the capital which was happening. So that is the reason why this point starts with or without extinguishing or reducing liability on any share. There is cancellation of paid up share capital which is lost or is unrepresented by available asset, matlab which is not being properly represented by the assets which are available, or paying off any paid up capital which is in excess of the wants of the company. मतलब कंपनी के पास जरूरत ज्यादा है तो कंपनी रिटर्न कर दे. कंपनी does not need it, so it's better that the company returns it to the shareholders so that shareholders they can invest the money elsewhere. अभी कंपनी तो यूज नहीं कर रही है, शेयर होल्डर का पैसा ऐसे ही पड़ा है. शेयर होल्डर ने इन्वेस्ट क्यों किया कंपनी में? ताकि शेयर होल्डर को डिविडेंड मिले अच्छा खासा. बट कंपनी पैसा ही यूज नहीं कर रही है तो ज्यादा प्रॉफिट्स कहाँ से होंगे? So ऐसे सिचुएशन में कंपनी क्या कर सकती है? Company can reduce its share capital, pay the excess amount back to the shareholder, and shareholder can invest this amount elsewhere. वो कहीं और जाके invest कर सकता है. So this is how reduction in share capital happens. Have you all understood the difference between alteration में जो cancellation था and this reduction? Both these things are very different. Do not mess up or do not confuse yourselves between both these things.
Ma'am, can you explain that fourth point again?
Fourth point, cancellation.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, say balance sheet of the company, it has certain assets, say discount allowed hai ya फिर preliminary expenses hai. Now these are not actual assets of the company. Preliminary expenses आ गया या discount allowed आ गया या फिर
Yes,
कोई.
ma'am. At the time of incorporation. Yeah.
Incorporation. These are not actual assets of the company, right? The company is not utilizing these assets for any purpose.
Yes, ma'am.
But फिर भी our balance sheet will be tallied. They are representing the equity share capital of the company. So there are some assets which are representing the capital of the company, but which is not correct. In that situation, जैसे discount allowed हो गया या preliminary expenses हो गया, ऐसे different types of expenses हो गया which are being represented. However, the capital being represented by way of these kind of assets or जो assets available है जो capital को represent कर रहे हैं, they are not proper assets. They are not actually the company's assets. So in that situation, the company may reduce its share capital. Clear hai? Which is not being properly represented by the assets which are available with the company.
Ma'am, like, okay, they're given that it is unpresented by available assets, okay, but which is lost means?
Say there's no asset at all. Matlab, there is some mismatch, some asset which is not being represented. So it's basically talking of the same thing.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Like it is not the proper asset, so we are cancelling the paid up share capital. Yeah, understood.
Okay. And also this section will not apply in case of buyback. Section 68 we'll discuss buyback in some time. So this section will not apply to buyback of its own shares by the company. Basically, section 66 will not apply in case of buyback, because buyback maybe there's a reduction which happens, but buyback is altogether a different situation. So that is the reason why we do not call that as section 66 will not be applicable there. There are separate provisions for buyback. So whenever a company wants to reduce share capital, it will have to pass a special resolution. But not only passing a special resolution, the company will also have to obtain confirmation or prior approval of the tribunal. So what are the conditions which have to be complied with whenever a company is reducing share capital? One is it has to obtain prior confirmation of the tribunal. It should be authorized by a special resolution. And no reduction shall be made of companies in arrears in repayment of any deposits accepted by it or the interest payable thereon. So if there are any deposits which are to be repaid by the company or company ने वो repay नहीं किया है, तो उस situation में reduction of share capital will not be allowed to the company. So these are some of the conditions which have to be complied with by the company whenever a company is contemplating a reduction in its share capital. अभी ट्रिब्यूनल से अप्रूवल लेना पड़ेगा. So what are the things with regard to the tribunal's approval? Let's understand. So once the tribunal से approval लेने के लिए company will have to make an application with the tribunal. Company will file an application with the tribunal that we are contemplating changing our share capital. We are now deciding to change our share capital. So Abhi tribunal has received an application from the company. Now what will the tribunal do? Application आने के बाद tribunal क्या करेगा? So tribunal, as soon as it receives the application from the company, the tribunal will notify the central government, will notify the registrar, and SEBI. SEBI comes in only in case of listed companies. Okay, so the tribunal will notify whom? Tribunal will notify central government, ROC, SEBI in case of listed companies. So SEBI listed company के case में आएगा. It will inform the creditors of the company. So tribunal, it has received the application. As soon as the tribunal receives application, the tribunal will inform all these people and will invite representations from these people कि कंपनी को अपना शेयर कैपिटल reduce करना है, हमारे पास ऐसा एप्लीकेशन आया है, अगर आप लोगों के पास कोई representations है, कोई objections है, तो you all make your representations with us. So the tribunal will notify all of these persons and will also consider the representations made by these parties within 3 months. So the tribunal will give a time span of 3 months to these parties from the date of receipt of notice to give their representation. And if these people, that is CG, ROC, SEBI, creditors, they fail to give any representation within 3 months, then it shall be presumed that these people, they have no objection with the reduction in the share capital. So क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे? सबसे पहले कंपनी ट्रिब्यूनल को एप्लीकेशन कर रही है. ट्रिब्यूनल के पास एप्लीकेशन आने के बाद ट्रिब्यूनल इज सेंडिंग नोटिसेस टू डिफरेंट अथॉरिटीज and inviting representations from them. These authorities, they have got 3 months to give their representations, to send their representations. If they have any objections, they have 3 months, and 3 months may they'll have to send the representations. However, if these parties, they do not send the representations within 3 months, then the tribunal will assume that these parties, they do not have any objection. Then the tribunal, if it has received no objection, no representations, then tribunal will pass an order wherein they'll confirm the reduction in the share capital if it is satisfied that the debt or claim of every creditor has been discharged or determined or has been secured or his consent is obtained. देखो company अगर reduce करी है share capital, company is going to pay some money to its shareholders. अगर कुछ पैसा पे कर रही है कंपनी शेयर होल्डर्स को, सो उस सिचुएशन में क्रेडिटर्स का कंसेंट ऑब्टेन करना पहले बहुत जरूरी हो जाता है, क्योंकि क्रेडिटर्स तो पहले बोलेंगे ना कि आप अपने शेयर होल्डर्स को पैसा दे रहे हो एंड यू आर नॉट पेइंग आवर लायबिलिटीज. दिस इज नॉट करेक्ट. वी विल नॉट अलाउ दिस. So whenever a company is reducing share capital, obtaining consent of creditors becomes important. So even when the tribunal is giving its confirmation, when the tribunal is passing this order, tribunal will make sure that all the debts of the creditors, they are either satisfied, या तो आपने creditors को already pay off कर दिया, या फिर you've made a separate arrangement, your creditors are secured, there is some security which is being created in favor of the creditors, the amount which has to be paid to the creditors, or you've obtained the consent of the creditor that the creditor has no problem in the company paying the amount for the purpose of reduction in the share capital. So tribunal, only upon being satisfied on all these parameters, will pass an order confirming the reduction of share capital. And the tribunal will not sanction an application for reduction unless the accounting treatment is in conformity with the accounting standards and the certificate to that effect by the company's auditor has been filed. So though or condition to be complied with, one is that the accounting treatment of this reduction has to be as per the prescribed accounting standards, Plus, this has to be certified by the company's auditor. So, company का जो auditor है, he has to certify कि जो भी accounting treatment हो रहा है of reduction, it is in accordance with the accounting standards which are applicable. Then, a certified copy of the order of tribunal and of the minute approved by the tribunal showing the amount of share capital, number of shares into which the capital is divided, amount of each share, and amount which is deemed to be paid upon each share, जो भी basically changes हो रहे हैं. So this tribunal's order has to be filed with the registrar within 30 days from the date of receipt of order, and ROC will register the same and issue a certificate that this change has happened. And the order of tribunal confirming the reduction in share capital shall be published in such manner as may be directed by the tribunal. So this particular section, this particular topic basically deals with how the tribunal is going to give its approval. So सबसे पहले tribunal will send notices to certain authorities, give them 3 months for representation. If no representation is received, tribunal will assume that these authorities, they do not have any problem. The tribunal will pass an order confirming the reduction in share capital provided that sufficient the debts of creditors have been discharged or have been secured properly, or consent of the creditors have been obtained. Then tribunal will sanction this order only if accounting standards have been complied with and a certificate from the company's auditor is received by it that the accounting treatment is as per the accounting standards. And after receipt of the tribunal's order, the tribunal's order shall be filed by the company with the registrar of companies within 30 days. और ट्रिब्यूनल अगर बोल रहा है कि ये वाला ऑर्डर कहीं पे पब्लिश करना है, सो जहां पे भी ट्रिब्यूनल बोल रहा है वहां पे वो ऑर्डर पब्लिश होना चाहिए. So these are the conditions which have to be complied with by the tribunal when the tribunal is sanctioning an order confirming reduction in share capital. Is this clear? ये पॉइंट समझ में आया ट्रिब्यूनल के ऑर्डर का?
Yes, ma'am.
Now the next point talks about the liability of member. So no member of the company, whether past or present, shall be liable to any call or contribution in respect of any share held by him which exceeds the difference between the amount paid on the share or reduced amount, if any, which is deemed to have been paid thereon, and the amount of the share which is fixed by the order of reduction. So this basically says कि कोई भी shareholder of the company, he'll not be asked to pay any amount which is exceeding the amount of the share after the reduction in the value. Say for example, पहले जो शेयर का अमाउंट था 10 रुपए था, अभी reduce करके 7 रुपए हो गया. So ये जो 3 रुपए है difference between this amount, ये 3 रुपए शेयर होल्डर से मेंबर से नहीं बुलवाए जाएंगे. सो इफ यू रिमेंबर, ऊपर मैंने आपको बताया था व्हेन वी वर डूइंग reduction in share capital, there can be two situations. One is wherein the company says we will not call this amount at all, and that is what happens generally. But अगर कंपनी को कोई इंटेंशन है कंपनी का कि फ्यूचर में they will call up this amount later on, so the company will have to clearly specify this in the notice of reduction in the share capital. But if they are not specifying it, so the company cannot call any amount from its member which is in excess of the amount, which is in excess of the reduced amount, which is in excess of the reduced amount. Now, अभी I told you that tribunal क्या करेगा? Tribunal creditors को भी notice भेजेगा that this company wants to change its or reduce its share capital. Now say company के बहुत सारे creditors होते हैं. Company does not have only one creditor, but the company has several creditors. अभी एक जो क्रेडिटर है कंपनी का, पता था कि ये क्रेडिटर ऑब्जेक्शन लेगा ही. Now sometimes it so happens that there's one student in class who will have objection with everything. ये ऐसा क्यों, ये ऐसा क्यों, and that person would never be satisfied with whatever happens. So similarly, कंपनी में भी ऐसे कुछ कुछ लोग होते हैं, क्रेडिटर्स कुछ कुछ होते हैं, जो मतलब even if everything is happening in a structured manner, they would have some problem. बट क्या हुआ ना, जिसका जो ऑब्जेक्शन ले सकता था उसका नाम द क्रेडिटर्स के लिस्ट में इंक्लूडेड नहीं था. So उस सिचुएशन में क्या होगा, he is a creditor, his consent has to be obtained, but his name was not included in the list of creditors. So what will happen in such a situation? So let's understand it. Basically says that where the name of any creditor who is entitled to object matlab who has got the right to object the reduction in share capital is not entered in the list of creditors by reason of his ignorance, and after such reduction the company commits a default within the meaning of section 6 of IBC. IBC is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So after reduction in the share capital, if there's any default which has been committed by the company under IBC, in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, then in that situation, every person who was the member of the company on the date of registration of order of reduction by ROC shall be liable to contribute to the payment of the debt or claim an amount not exceeding that which would have been liable to contribute if the company had commenced winding up on the day immediately before the said date. So this particular point basically says कि अगर एक creditor का नाम include नहीं हो पाया तो इस situation में जो भी लोग member थे company के, every person who was the member of the company on the date when the order of reduction was registered by the registrar of company, all such members of the company, they'll become liable to contribute for the purpose of payment of that particular debt or claim. But yes, their contribution will not exceed the amount which they would have actually contributed in case of actual winding up of the company. मतलब contribution इनको करना पड़ेगा, but इनका contribution should not exceed the amount which they would have had to contribute in case of actual winding up of the company. There's no winding up which is happening here. However, एक क्रेडिटर का नाम इंक्लूडेड नहीं है, तो जिस बिकॉज हिज नेम इज नॉट इंक्लूडेड उसका डेट भी शायद कंसिडरेशन में नहीं आया. तो उस सिचुएशन में जो भी मेंबर था कंपनी का ऑन द डेट व्हेन दिस ऑर्डर ऑफ रिडक्शन हैज बीन sanctioned by the registrar, that person shall become liable for the payment of debt, contribute certain amount, and this amount should not be exceeding the amount which the person would have to contribute as if the company was winding up. And agar company wound up ho jati hai, then in that situation the tribunal may, on an application made by such creditor and proof of his ignorance, if he thinks fit, settle a list of persons so liable to contribute. So agar company ka actual winding up hota hai and the tribunal receives an application from the creditor, then they may give a list of people who would be liable to contribute in order to pay off his debt. Make and enforce calls and orders on the contributories. Contributories are basically the people who will contribute in the event of winding up of the company, as if they were ordinary contributories in the winding up. So this is basically in a situation जहाँ पे एक creditor का नाम included नहीं है in the list of creditors of the company, then in that situation, and on the basis of that list, there is a reduction in share capital which has happened, which has taken place. In that situation, every person who was the member of the company will become liable to contribute in order to pay off the debt or the claim, and uh, their liability would definitely be limited to what they would have to pay in case of winding up of the company. और अगर company का actually winding up हो रहा है, तो in that situation the creditor may apply to the tribunal, and the tribunal will decide the list of credit. Tribunal will then settle a list of people who would be liable to contribute and make and enforce calls, pass orders, so that the contributories, or that rather the members of the company who are liable to contribute, they will contribute. So this is basically an exceptional situation which would arise in a case where a person's name, a creditor's name rather, is not entered in the list of creditors. ये points clear है?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's also punishment which has been prescribed, and that is if any officer of the company he knowingly conceals the name of creditor, मतलब जानबूझ के creditor का नाम conceal किया, या फिर knowingly misrepresents the nature or the amount of debt claim, assist or is a party in such concealment, so he'll be liable under section 447. 447 क्यों? क्योंकि punishment for fraud दिया जाएगा उस officer of the company. So if this name has not been included intentionally, so in that situation, the person who is liable for this kind of offense will be punishable under section 447, that is punishment for fraud. क्योंकि यहाँ पे this is an intentional mistake which has been made. Clear है? So this was section 66 with respect to reduction in share capital. Take a break of 2 minutes. I'll be back. Now moving on to section 67.
Ma'am, like they told in 7th point that no liability of the members, no ma'am.
That is no liability to further pay on any calls of the company.
But ma'am, again they are saying about the contributories.
That contribution is different. So if there's any amount which is still left, if there's any amount which the member have to pay, they'll have to contribute in the event of winding up. So for this, you should have a base of winding up. Okay? In the event of winding up of the company, there are a few members of the company who will have to make certain contributions. So that is the contribution which is being talked of here.
Okay, and that is about like that is about reduction of share capital, that no liability of the member.
That is in reduction.
Okay, understood.
So the next section which we will talk of now is section 67, which talks of certain restrictions which are put on the company to purchase its own securities. Now, say for example, there's a company, और ये company का share. See, the name of this company is iTech Limited. And these company shares are listed. Market में trade होते हैं इसके shares. Now the question comes is what determines the price of the share? Market share company के share का price क्या determine करता है? तो it is the market volatility which determines the price of the shares. There's demand, supply. ये सारी चीजें जो है they contribute to determination of price of the shares. अभी कंपनी क्या करती है? कंपनी खुद के शेयर्स खरीदती है एंड द कंपनी वांट्स टू रेज द प्राइस ऑफ इट्स सिक्योरिटीज, सो इट इज बेसिकली ट्राइंग टू इंक्रीज द डिमांड ऑफ इट्स सिक्योरिटीज. तो खुद का शेयर खरीद रही है ताकि प्राइस बढ़े शेयर का, क्योंकि ज्यादा ट्रेड हो रहा है. And using the market sentiments, market economics, the company wants to just increase the price of its shares and raise its demand. So in this situation, company अगर ऐसा कुछ कर रही है, it will create a wrong impression in the minds of investors. And also, say company से खुद से नहीं purchase कर रही, but company is company's director. He is purchasing the shares of the company on behalf of the company. या फिर the company say company is providing some security say assistant to a bank, और बैंक को बोलती है कि आप हमारे shares purchase करो हमारे behalf पे. तो ये सारी चीजों पे restriction है. Section 67 puts a restriction on the company to purchase its own security. 68 में we'll understand buyback, that is a different case altogether. But 67 में, in order to protect the interests of innocent investors, Section 67 बोलता है कि company it cannot purchase its own securities, or a company cannot buy its own shares unless it is buyback, या फिर unless it is a result of a reduction. So that is a different situation. और company ना तो खुद के shares खरीद सकती है, ना ही the company can provide any financial assistance. मतलब कंपनी बैंक को बोलता है that I'll give you money, you go and purchase my shares. या फिर कंपनी अपने directors को बोलती है I'll give loan to you and using that loan you go and purchase the shares of this company of mine. So providing the company can neither invest on its own, and also it cannot directly or indirectly provide any financial assistance to any other person to purchase its shares. So company खुद के shares खुद भी नहीं purchase कर सकती है, and company can also not provide any financial assistance to any person either directly or indirectly in any form for the purpose of purchase of its securities. So no company who has share capital can buy its own shares unless it is proper, unless it is consequent to reduction in capital, unless it is under the provisions of the act. तब तक कंपनी खुद के शेयर्स परचेज नहीं कर सकती है. Also, a public company cannot directly or indirectly lend or give money or financial assistance to any person to purchase its own shares or shares of its holding company. So company खुद तो purchase कर ही नहीं सकती है खुद के shares, but it can also not provide any financial assistance to any person to purchase its own shares or shares of its holding company. However, there are exceptions to it. Exceptions में सबसे फर्स्ट एक्सेप्शन आता है बैंकिंग कंपनी. अभी बैंकिंग कंपनी का तो बिजनेस ही है लोन देना. If banks they stop giving loans and only start maintaining savings account and current account, do you think bank अपना business run कर पाएंगे? Do you think bank will be able to run their businesses if they are not giving loans to customers? Will the banks be able to survive if they are not giving any loans? Will the banks be able to survive if they are not giving any loans? Will they be able to function properly? Will they even make money if they are not giving any loans?
No, ma'am.
Definitely not. अभी लोन पे इंटरेस्ट आता है, वही तो मेन इनकम होता है बैंक का. So I was saying that a company is not allowed to purchase its own shares. Exceptions are there. We'll talk of exceptions later. A company can neither purchase its own share nor it can provide any financial assistance or give loan to any other person, whether it is director, whether it is any bank providing any type of security to any other person to purchase its own shares or shares of its holding company. However, there are certain exceptions wherein a company can give loan. तो फर्स्ट एक्सेप्शन है बैंकिंग कंपनी. अब बैंकिंग कंपनी का तो बिजनेस ही लोन देना होता है. तो बैंकिंग कंपनी पे आप ये रेस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं डाल सकते हो कि बैंकिंग कंपनी लोन नहीं दे सकता. सो इफ द बैंकिंग कंपनी दे आर एक्टिंग इन द ऑर्डिनरी कोर्स ऑफ देयर बिजनेस, मतलब lending उनका business है, and if the banking company is acting in an ordinary course of its business, so then there's no problem. The banking company can give loan in that situation. The second situation wherein a company can provide assistance is, say company hai, and there's an employee of the company. Say the salary of this employee is rupees 20,000 per month. So exception बोलता है that a company can give loan to its employee which is not exceeding his 6-month salary. ठीक है? So company can provide loan to its employee which is not exceeding his 6-month salary. तो यहाँ पे उसका 6 months का salary कितना होगा? कितना होगा? 20,000 per month. What would be his 6-month salary?
1,20,000.
1.2 lakhs. So company इस employee को loan दे सकता है to purchase company's shares, but only up to an amount of 1,20,000. So company can give a loan to its employee to purchase its shares, but the amount should not exceed 6 months salary of that employee. And also, this employee should not be a key managerial person. KMP includes CEO, CFO, managing director, ये सारे जो main important persons होते हैं वो. So this employee can be anyone except a KMP. मतलब a company cannot give loan to KMP even if it is within his 6 month salary. तब भी company KMP को loan नहीं दे सकता company के अपने खुद के shares खरीदने के लिए. So this is the second exception. And the third exception is a company, say a company is granting ESOPs to its employees. So कल हमने we have discussed ESOPs in detail. अभी से ESOP खरीदने के लिए company is providing some assistance to its employee. Company is providing some loan to its employee. So then that is okay. Then we have no problem. But ऐसे ही खुद के shares खरीदने के लिए अगर company loan दे रही है तो फिर we have a problem there. So what are the exceptions? सबसे पहला exception, a banking company, if it is acting in its ordinary course of business, then they can lend. But lending money by company in accordance with any scheme approved by the company by a special resolution for the employee. So ये होता है ESOP. So if under an approved scheme, the company is lending money to their employee, which is authorized by a special resolution, then there's no problem. And also company can give loan to its employees other than directors and KMPs, मतलब इनको loan नहीं दिया जा सकता, for purchase of shares up to 6 months of their annual salary. So 6 months salary तक दे सकते हैं. However, if a company is doing any such thing, a disclosure of this has to be given in the board's report if employees have not exercised voting rights. So ये कुछ भी करिए ना company, any such type of assistance is being provided by the company, a disclosure about this particular assistance has to be given in the board's report, in the board's report. However, section 67 will have no impact on redemption of preference shares. But abhi, if you talk of section 67 now, this can be this section will not be applicable in case of a private company if that private company complies with certain conditions. So this section 67 will not be applicable or shall not apply to private companies and specified IFSC public companies if these conditions are complied with. If the private company has not made a default in filing financial statements and annual return. So section 92 talks of annual return, उसका default नहीं होना चाहिए, and section 134 जो financial statements की बात करता है उसका default नहीं होना चाहिए. So first condition क्या है private company के लिए? First condition is that the private company should not have made any default in filing financial statements and annual return with the ROC. The last two exceptions were company giving loan to their employees, which is not more than 6 months of their salary. Company can provide loan to their employees, which is not more than 6 months of their annual salary, to purchase their own share. And last one exception ये था that if under an approved scheme the company is providing any financial assistance to its employees, then the company can do so. However, this section, that is these restrictions, will not be applicable in case of a private company if the private company complies with all of these conditions. The first condition is that the private company should not have made any default in filing financial statements and annual return with the registrar. And also the second condition is a private company in whose share capital no other body corporate has invested any money. So this private company should be a company जहाँ पे किसी और body corporate ने invest नहीं किया है. Which means what? What is a body corporate? What is a body corporate? What is a body corporate? any company, including a foreign company. So the other condition which has to be complied with so that this section will not be applicable to a private company is that koi bhi body corporate should not have invested in this private company. The other condition is if borrowings of such companies means private companies, if the borrowing of these private companies from banks and financial institution or any body corporate is less than twice its paid up share capital or 50 crores, whichever is lower. Say, for example, the paid up share capital of the private company is 2 crore. So 2 crore का twice amount कितना आता है? 4 crore or 50 crore, whichever is lower. So lower comes to 4 crore, which means the borrowing of this private company should be less than 4 crore. Only then the section will not be applicable. However, say borrowings हो गए 5 crore के, so in that situation, this condition will not be complied with, and the private company will have to comply with Section 67. And all these conditions are to be complied with. Okay, these are and conditions. And the last condition is that the private company should not default in repayment of the borrowings which it has made. So Section 67 will not be applicable to a private company if that private company has not made any default under Section 92 and 134, that is annual return and filing of financial statements. If no body corporate has invested in the private company, where the borrowings of this company are not exceeding 2 times the paid up capital or 50 crores, whichever is less. So we'll have to identify the lower limit and then see borrowing uske limit mein hai ya nahi hai. And the last condition to be complied with is that there's no default in repayment of borrowings. If all these conditions are complied with, then Section 67 will not be applicable to that private company. Clear है? समझ में आया? Public company को तो Section 67 हर situation में apply होगा. Will not apply to a private company or a specified IFSC public company if they satisfy all these conditions. So sorry, this is Section 137, not 134. ये समझ में आया? Are these points clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And then there's punishment for contravention. Company ka minimum fine 1 lakh, maximum 25 lakh. Officer in default may be punished with imprisonment, which may extend up to 3 years. Minimum fine is 1 lakh and maximum is 25 lakh. This is punishment for contravention of Section 67. So under Section 67, we have understood that company के ऊपर prohibition है from purchasing its own securities. But Section 68 में जब हम जाएंगे, Section 68 में we are going to talk of buyback and the prohibitions with regard to buyback of the company. So सबसे पहले तो मुझे ये बताओ buyback का मतलब क्या होता है? And why do you think a company buys back its own shares? Why do you think a company would buy back its shares?
Ma'am, what is buyback means? The company purchases its own shares.
Hmm.
So it will reduce the share capital of the company.
Okay. But why does a company buy back?
Don't know, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else? Reduce dilution, as in? Now, when we talk of buyback, there can be several reasons of why a company buys back its shares. सबसे बेसिक रीजन अगर मैं बताऊं तो ऐसा हो सकता है कि कंपनी है सरप्लस कैश, कंपनी के पास बहुत सारा कैश पड़ा है. However, the company does not have so many projects to invest in. So one of the primary reasons for companies when they are buying back is when they are holding excess amount of cash. And companies, they do not want to hold excess amount of cash. Matlab, they do not prefer holding huge amounts of excess cash with them. And they think that it's better to return this cash to the shareholders than keeping the cash lying in the bank account. So अगर कंपनी के पास बहुत सारा कैश पड़ा है, excess amount of cash है, so that would be one case wherein the company would buy back securities. So वहां पे जैसे कंपनी बोलेगी कि instead of keeping the cash here with me in my bank account, it's better I return this cash to shareholders क्योंकि मेरे पास बहुत सारा है. But हाँ, there could be some big companies जिनको बड़ी investment करना है and they need this amount of cash, so that is a different case. But then again, there could be several other companies who would not be in need of this excess amount of cash and would not want to utilize that. So there could be companies जिनको ये cash future projects के लिए use करना है या फिर कहीं और investment के लिए use करना है. However, there could be companies जहाँ पे बहुत सारा cash उनको नहीं use करना है and they want to return it. So first, the reason of why a company buys back is say it has a lot of cash and no projects in hand, or no investment to be made in near future. So situation में company would definitely contemplate buying back of its shares because इतना surplus cash का company क्या करेगी. Second reason is buyback. It also improves the valuation of the company. So when the company is buying back, it will reduce the number of shares. Buyback will reduce the number of shares. Yes or no? Buyback may it will reduce the number of shares. Abhi number of shares reduce ho gaye. Now say for example, profit for equity shareholders of the company is say 10 lakhs. ठीक है, और say the number of equity shares were 1 lakh. So EPS कितना हो जाएगा, earning per share 10 रुपए का. Now if the company is reducing the number of shares from 10,000 to say 80,000, will the EPS increase? इस situation में EPS increase होगा. Yes. So the profit has remained same. Profit same ही है company का, but reduction in say buying back has led to increase in the EPS. So buying back also improves the valuation of the company. It improves the earning per share. It improves the return on equity of the company. So EPS बढ़ रहा है तो definitely people would say कि हाँ इसके growth अच्छा हो रहा है, P ratio अच्छा हो रहा है. So in order to improve the valuation भी company कभी-कभी buyback कर सकती है. या फिर if the company want to return the cash to the shareholders of the company can buy back. या फिर buying back of security will also help the promoters in consolidating their stake in the company. So promoter कभी-कभी सोचते हैं that what if our holding in the company go below a certain level. So in that situation, promoters and founders, they are basically the people who would hold a significant amount of the company shares. Majority usually promoters या founder के पास ही होता है, फिर बाद में वो public के पास जाता है. बट एक बार पब्लिक के पास चला जाता है और फिर बहुत सारे शेयर्स पब्लिक के पास जाने लग जाते हैं, तो उस सिचुएशन में प्रमोटर्स दे में स्टार्ट टू फील दैट ओके आई डू नॉट हैव मेजॉरिटी स्टेक नाउ, या फिर मेरा स्टेक जो है वो स्कैटर हो रहा है इन द कंपनी एंड पब्लिक होल्डिंग्स ज्यादा है. तो बाईबैक ऑफर करके क्या हो रहा है, अभी it helps maintaining the stake of the promoters in the company. से public का holding ज़्यादा हो गया है, तो उस सिचुएशन में बायबैक करके फिर प्रमोटर्स का स्टेक जो है वो लेवल पे लाने के लिए. सो दिस इज ऑल्सो वन रीजन ऑफ व्हाई कंपनी बाइज बैक और buys back its own shares. So ये सारे कुछ reasons है. So buying back is basically wherein a company is purchasing its own shares. Now let's have a look at certain provisions with regard to buyback. So company may purchase its own shares or securities out of free reserve, securities premium account. If you remember section 52 जब हम कर रहे थे तो वहां पे हमने देखा था that the amount in securities premium account can be utilized for the purposes of section 68. 68 में तब मैंने बोला था this talks of buyback. So securities premium account, it can be utilized for buyback. Then proceeds of issue of any share or specified securities. Matlab, say you've issued some new shares, so you can utilize the money which you've received from issue of that new shares for the purpose of buyback. Ya fir not out of proceeds of an earlier issue of the same kind of shares or specified securities. It cannot be done out of issue of any proceeds of any earlier issue. पहले कुछ issue किया था of same kind of shares या फिर specified securities का, तो उसका पैसा ये use नहीं कर सकते आप. 3 sources से कर सकते हो. One is free reserves, one is securities premium account, and other is proceeds of fresh issue, not earlier issue, fresh issue. So these are the sources out of which the company can buy back. Talking of what specified securities are, specified securities include ESOP or any other security which may be prescribed or specified by the central government. Now, when we talk of buyback, buyback के लिए भी कुछ conditions है जो comply with करने चाहिए. If the conditions are not complied with, तो फिर buyback नहीं होगा. सबसे पहले authorized by articles of association. Second one is special resolution is required. However, special resolution would not be required if the buyback is 10% or less than the total paid up equity share capital in free reserves, and the buyback has been authorized by the board by means of a resolution at the board meeting. मतलब क्या? We say authorization by articles of association is required. AOA authorization mandatory. Special resolution has to be passed if the company wants to buy back its shares. However, this special resolution is not required if the buyback is less than 10%, less than 10% or less than 10% of the total paid up capital. Total paid up capital, and this has been authorized by a board resolution. Okay. So normally buyback के लिए special resolution चाहिए. However, if the buyback is 10% or less than the total, मतलब equal to 10% भी चलेगा, 10% or less than the total paid up capital of the company, and it has been authorized by the board resolution, then in that situation a special resolution would not be necessary. So this is what the second point says. Authorized by SR, no SR required where the buyback is 10% or less of total paid up equity capital plus free reserves. So it is total paid up capital plus free reserves. So इनका total करेंगे and उसका 10% के अंदर है, तो and if it is authorized by a board resolution, then special resolution will not be required. The next condition is buyback is 25% or less of aggregate of paid up capital and free reserves of the company. So अगर आपको buyback करना है, your buyback should be 25% or less. मतलब less than or equal to 25% of what? Of the sum of paid up capital plus free reserves. So the maximum amount which can be bought back is 25% of paid up capital plus free reserves of the company. And after the buyback, the debt equity ratio of the company should not exceed 2:1. Debt equity ratio जो होता है company का, it should not go below it should not go beyond 2:1. And the maximum buyback in a financial year shall not exceed 25% of its total paid up equity capital in that financial year. So in one financial year, buyback cannot exceed 25% of the total paid up equity capital. यहाँ पे क्या था, यहाँ पे था buyback जो आप कर रहे हो, जो amount आप buyback कर रहे हो should be 25% or less than the sum of paid up capital plus free reserve. However, this gives us a limit on the buyback which can be made. So the limit is in one financial year, the maximum buyback can be of up to 25% of the total paid up equity capital in that financial year. Utna buyback kar sakte hai. And the ratio of debt to equity should not go beyond twice. So basically, जो post buyback debt equity ratio होता है should not go beyond 2:1. 2:1 या उससे कम चलेगा, but should not go beyond 2:1. And all the shares and securities which are being bought back, जो भी shares और specified securities buyback हो रहे हैं, they should be fully paid up, which means what? You cannot buy back any partly paid shares. एंड अगर आप लिस्टेड कंपनी के शेयर्स या स्पेसिफाइड सिक्योरिटीज बाय बैक कर रहे हो तो आपको सेबी रेगुलेशंस का भी कंप्लायंस करना पड़ेगा. यू विल हैव टू कंप्लाई विद द सेबी रेगुलेशंस एज वेल. नाउ आई एम श्योर अकाउंट्स में भी आपने बायबैक का टॉपिक किया होगा. यस और नो? हैव इफ यू वुड हैव touched upon this topic of buyback in accounts?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So वहाँ पे when you are ascertaining the buyback allowed, so you take care of all these three parameters, right? Your debt equity ratio 2:1, or your 25% of total paid up capital and in one financial year, and 25% of aggregate of paid up capital plus free reserves. ऐसे ही calculate करते हो ना, buyback valid है नहीं valid है, या फिर कितना amount buyback किया जा सकता है. This is how you calculate, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So वही conditions जो आप वहाँ पे calculation में use करते हो. Now why am I saying this? See, when you do something practically, that is retained in your mind for a longer time than what you read, or than when you are studying something. So आपने practically accounts में buyback के problems solve किए. So if you know those problems, if you know how to solve those problems, वही 3 condition यहाँ पे लगाने हैं buyback के लिए. बाकी सारे conditions तो general condition है. बाकी सारे AOA authorization, special resolution, now these conditions come everywhere. Now without even looking at the point, आप ये बोल सकते हो this should be first condition सब जगह authorization by AOA है. At most of the places, the first condition which we come across is authorization by the articles of association of the company. So वो सारे basic conditions होते हैं and वो याद हो जाते हैं. But these are the conditions जो ज़्यादा importance के होते हैं, and these are the conditions which will actually fetch you marks in your examination. Now, sometimes a question on buyback comes up and on the basis of these conditions आपको determine करना पड़ता है कि वो buyback सही है नहीं है क्या है. So ये 3 जो conditions है, these conditions play a very important role than the other basic condition. Doesn't mean that you forget the basic conditions, but I was just linking this to accountancy because वहाँ पे you practically do this, and when you practically do something, you remember it much more clearly than only listening to a particular thing once. And apart from it, the other conditions are very simple. Only fully paid up shares can be bought back. So that is a logical thing. Partly paid shares buyback कैसे करोगे? Fully paid shares को ही buyback करना पड़ेगा. And also, अगर listed securities है, तो we have come across this everywhere. If listed shares है, तो SEBI के regulations तो apply हो गई. If something is listed, तो we have to apply SEBI regulations. come what may. Now talking of किसके shares buyback किए जा सकते हैं? Existing shareholders on proportionate basis. Buyback भी proportionate basis पे ही होता है. So existing shareholders के share या फिर open market में जाके from the public, या फिर securities which are issued to employees under ESOP या फिर sweat equity. So these are the shares which can be bought back. either the shares of the existing shareholders, or you go to the open market and buy back the securities from public, या फिर you can buy back the securities which you have issued to your employees under ESOP, या फिर any uh, ESOP or any sweat equity shares which have been issued can also be bought back. Now, अभी स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन पास करना है तो स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन के लिए मीटिंग बुलानी पड़ेगी. Whenever a company has to pass a special resolution, a meeting will have to be called, and meeting है तो notice भेजना पड़ेगा. Now notice भेजना पड़ेगा तो उसके लिए this notice should be accompanied with an explanatory statement. Now, what has to be stated in this explanatory statement? It should contain details of all the material facts. What is the need for buyback? क्यों buyback कर रही है company? अभी क्या जरूरत है company को buyback करने की? It has to be clearly stated there. Then, which class of shares or securities are being bought back? Amount invested under buyback, time limit for completion of buyback. ये सारे details जो है buyback के, ये सारे details should be clearly mentioned in the explanatory statement which is attached to the notice of the meeting where the special resolution for buyback is going to be passed. So we'll have to give in all the details, we'll have to give in all the information to the members, whoever is going to vote. उनको पहले से पता होना चाहिए ना buyback क्यों कर रही है कंपनी, कितना अमाउंट का बायबैक है, कौन से शेयर्स बायबैक हो रहे हैं, कितना टाइम लगेगा बायबैक कंप्लीट करने के लिए. एवरीथिंग शुड बी क्लियरली स्टेटेड. अपार्ट फ्रॉम इट, buyback, it should be completed within 12 months of passing of special resolution or the board resolution as the case may be. Now why do you think यहाँ पे board resolution लिखा है? Why do you think this statement has been added here? Special resolution is all right, but why this statement? Why do you think this statement has been written here?
Ma'am, like in you told one case, no ma'am, like a special resolution is not necessary.
Right.
Then it may be helpful.
Right, correct. So we've come across one exceptional situation wherein special resolution is not required. So for that reason, this particular line has been included. See, whenever you're studying law, no word or no sentence is included in law without any meaning. Every word has a meaning, every sentence has a meaning. हर कॉमा का भी मीनिंग होता है और फुल स्टॉप का भी मीनिंग होता है. सो you have to be very careful when we are reading something. ठीक है? Apart from it, before making the buyback, the company will have to file with the registrar and SEBI, if it is a listed company. What are the documents it will have to file? A declaration of solvency. Declaration of solvency is basically a declaration wherein the company is stating that I am not going to wind up in the near future. Yeah, I am in a good position. I am in a solvent position, and near future में मेरा liquidation या winding up नहीं होने वाला है. Then, and verified by an affidavit to the effect that board has made a full inquiry of the company and that company is capable of meeting its liabilities and will not be rendered insolvent within a period of 1 year from the date of declaration of solvency. Basically, एक affidavit sign करवा के देना कि कंपनी अभी अगले 1 साल में इंसॉल्वेंट नहीं डिक्लेयर होगी and the company is completely capable of paying off its liabilities. And this declaration shall be signed by at least 2 directors, one of whom shall be the managing director. So this declaration which is being given कि अगले 1 साल में कंपनी insolvent नहीं होगा, तो that declaration has to be signed by at least 2 directors of the company and at least one of them should be the MD. अगर MD अपॉइंट किया है तो MD को साइन करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो फिर any other 2 directors of the company, they should sign it. The company shall extinguish and physically destroy the shares or securities so bought back within 7 days of the last date of completion of buyback. Now से पहले होता था ये, this point was relevant earlier क्योंकि शेयर सर्टिफिकेट्स वगैरह रहते थे तो फिजिकल शेयर का जब चलन था तब वहां पे this point was relevant that the company should destroy all the shares and securities which have been bought back within 7 days से बायबैक कंप्लीट हो गया, उसके 7 दिन में जो भी शेयर्स बायबैक किए उसका जो भी कॉपी है, फिजिकल कॉपी है, वो पूरा कंपनी को डिस्ट्रॉय करना पड़ेगा. एंड आफ्टर बायबैक ऑफ शेयर्स, company shall not make further issue of same kind of shares, including allotment under section 62 or specified securities within 6 months. मतलब say for example, I have made a buyback of some equity shares now on say 1st of May. तो अभी अगले 6 महीने तक मैं सेम कैटेगरी के शेयर्स इशू नहीं कर सकती या फिर सेम काइंड के शेयर्स इशू नहीं कर सकती, except for issue of bonus shares. I can still issue bonus shares, yes. Or it can be by way of discharge of subsisting obligations such as conversion of warrants, stock option schemes, sweat equity shares, or conversion of preference shares or debentures. कहीं कुछ conversion हो रहा है, that is a different case. Or if I'm issuing bonus shares, that is a different case. But for the next 6 months, once I'm buying back, if I'm buying back today, for the next 6 months, I cannot make a further issue of the similar kind of shares or similar kind of securities. So I cannot do that except for bonus shares or any conversion of preference shares or debentures or under any option schemes or sweat equity shares जो मैं grant कर रही हूँ. इसके अलावा I cannot issue shares of similar kind to any person for the next 6 months. So 6 महीने का basically cooling period है कि अगले 6 महीने के लिए same type के security shares issue नहीं करेगी company. And after the buyback is completed, company will file a form SH11 with ROC and SEBI. SEBI कब listed company के case में within 30 days of completion. And the company shall maintain a register for securities bought back in form SH10. And then there's penalty 1 lakh, 3 lakh, 1 lakh, 3 lakh for both company as well as officer and default. So these are the conditions which have to be complied with by the company when the company is buying back shares. समझ में आया? बायबैक भी प्रोपोर्शनेट बेसिस पे होता है. ओके Is this much clear?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, and one doubt, ma'am. Like they told in procedure of buyback that class of shares intended to be purchased should be mentioned, no, ma'am, in the explanatory statement.
Yes.
Like they can purchase preference shares or equity shares, their wish, ma'am.
It is usually equity shares which are bought back. Preference shares का buyback नहीं होता है. Generally, मतलब.
Okay, but they can do if they want.
Yeah, they can.
Why they will not do preference shares, ma'am? Like
your voice is breaking.
Why they will not do preference shares, ma'am, buyback?
Because see, if we are talking of promoters का stake बढ़ाने के लिए अगर कुछ कर रहे हैं तो promoter stake usually equity shares से ही होता है. If preference shares are being bought back, there will be no point in increasing the promoter stake because preference shareholders they do not have any voting right at all. तो फिर कोई मतलब ही नहीं ना.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, and ma'am, like they given that the company cannot buy back its shares because it involves reduction of share capital affecting the creditors. So how it will affect the creditors?
See, effect to the creditors is basically when you're buying back, you're paying money. You're utilizing funds. You are paying money to people from whom you're buying back the shares. So creditors, they would definitely say कि आप अपने equity shareholders को हमसे पहले क्यों pay कर रहे हो? You cannot pay your shareholders before us. First clear our dues and then pay to your pay the amount to your shareholders. So
Okay.
that is the reason why creditors' consent is required.
So their concern is that the funds are going first to equity shareholders, pay off our dues. So it is that.
Or other shareholders of the company, you are utilizing your funds, you have funds, but you're not paying us first and you are paying it to your shareholders first. तो इसका मतलब तो ये है कि आप अपने shareholders को पूरा पैसा दे दोगे और हमको हमारे लिए पैसा बचेगा ही नहीं. तो इसलिए creditors का consent लेते हैं.
Okay, understood.
And also in the event of buyback, again, CRR has to be created. That is Capital Redemption Reserve. Section 69 talks of Capital Redemption Reserve and says, where a company purchases its own shares out of free reserves or securities premium, then sum equal to the nominal value of share shall be transferred to CRR, and details of such transfer shall be disclosed in the balance sheet. So first time CRR देखा था preference share के redemption के time पे. Second time it comes here during buyback of securities. So whenever a company is purchasing its own share, जो भी nominal value of share purchase हो रहा है, उतना amount the company will have to transfer to CRR, and the amount in CRR here, ये amount भी can be utilized only and only for issue of fully paid bonuses. So be very clear कि CRR में जो amount है वो एक ही purpose के लिए use होगा, कोई और purpose नहीं हो. But CRR में amount कहाँ से आ सकता है? At the time of preference shares का redemption या फिर when the company is purchasing its own securities. So these are the situations wherein the amount comes up in the CRR account or the Capital Redemption Reserve. Now, apart from this, Section 70 talks about situations where buyback is prohibited. What are the situations where the buyback is prohibited? So, सबसे पहले तो a company cannot directly or indirectly purchase shares or other specified securities through any subsidiary company. मतलब buyback to any subsidiary companies, including its own subsidiary, not allowed. आप अपनी subsidiary से ही पैसा buyback करो, allowed नहीं है. Now, why do you think subsidiary से पैसा buyback करना allowed नहीं है? What will happen if you buy back securities from your subsidiary?
Like, ma'am, they can lose their stake in the subsidiary.
How will you lose your stake in the subsidiary if you're buying back your shares from the subsidiary?
Okay, it will increase, no? Yeah.
It will not increase. अरे आप आपके shares subsidiary से खरीद रहे हो. Your subsidiary has your shares. We are talking of company purchasing its own shares, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So a company is a holding company if it has some stake in the subsidiary. And we are saying कि holding company subsidiary से अपने खुद के shares buyback कर रहा है. सबसे पहले तो issue of shares to subsidiary is not allowed. There are exceptions to it. Section 19 में we have covered those. So there are only certain situations wherein a subsidiary company can hold shares in the holding company. Otherwise, a subsidiary is not allowed to hold any securities in the holding company.
Yes, ma'am.
So कुछ basic situations ही होते हैं. अगर पहले से ही hold करिए subsidiary, then no problem. So the buyback through any subsidiary company, including own subsidiary company, is not allowed. And उसके अलावा buyback through any investment company or group of investment company also is not allowed. And apart from it, if there's any default in payment of deposits, payment of interest, redemption of preference shares, payment of dividend to shareholders, or repayment of loans, so default है तब तक आप buyback नहीं कर सकते. But if you've made the default good, if you've made good the default, तो उसके बाद 3 साल जाने के बाद आप buyback कर सकते हो. You have to give a time span of 3 years, and only after that, you have to give a time span of 3 years. Only after 3 years have lapsed since the default is made good, the company can buy back shares. Which defaults? All these, ये जो भी category of defaults दिया है, ये default किया है आपने तो आप buyback नहीं कर सकते. However, if you've made good the default, मतलब you did not pay dividend to shareholders, but now you've paid the dividend. अभी dividend pay हो गया, तो dividend pay होने के 3 साल बाद आप buyback कर सकते हो. So 3 years should have lapsed from the date when the default has been made good. And if the company has made any non-compliance with provisions of 92 is filing of annual return or declaration of dividend or punishment for failure to distribute dividend, या फिर 129 which talks of financial statement, इनमें से कोई भी section का default company ने किया है, has not complied with provisions of any of these sections, then in that situation the company is prohibited from buying back its security. So these are basically situations जहाँ पे buyback allowed नहीं होता or there is a prohibition on buyback. So these points become important from MCQ type of question point of view से भी and also from a case study question point of view. So this was with respect to buyback. Abhi now we have section 71 which talks of debentures. So ये भी थोड़ा lengthy section है. We'll not do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll have a small session, but I'll also come up with a few question and answers from your past examination as well as from your material. So we'll solve those question and answers after we are done with the entire chapter. We'll solve those question and answers, and that's how we'll conclude the session. So if you have any doubt, you can ask me. Tomorrow would be the last class. Tomorrow we'll finish this chapter. We are left with only debentures. We've completed the share capital part. Yes, so if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Ma'am, like that point I told no, ma'am, like the buyback, you told no, ma'am, the buyback should not be done through subsidiary company, investment company. So why it is like that?
Now that will be your homework for the day. I did not give you all homework now. So you all try and figure out. If you're not able to do it, I'll give this answer to you tomorrow. Don't worry. Any other questions? Also, is there someone who is waiting for their foundation results tomorrow? I know about a few, but is there someone else also who's waiting for their foundation results tomorrow? We expect foundation results to be announced tomorrow, right?
Ma'am, and did you recognize me, ma'am? Like we have met in Hyderabad meetup, no, ma'am, in Banjara Hills.
Oh, okay. See, I am bad at remembering names. I'm sorry.
Okay. Like Surat sir and
Yes, yes.
yeah, like only some of them are there, no, ma'am. Only two students came on that day.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So if you all are interested in continuing this batch, you all can join in and register yourself even now. There's no problem. We have the backup of these classes as well. And this is for November 22 attempt. So we'll finish it well before your exam. You will have sufficient time to prepare for your examination. So do not worry. Any other questions, anyone? I see most of the people, they are only interested in listening to what conversations are happening. So I see Chaitanya, Siva, and Mahima. You're not expecting your foundation results tomorrow, right?
No, ma'am.
The other two people are okay.
Ma'am, when the CMA inter results will come? Any idea, ma'am?
I don't know. I have no clue about that.
Like they told in August, but again, some exam centers, the exam is postponed. No, ma'am. Again, they are conducting.
Okay,
So,
I'm sorry. I have no clue about the date or any such thing.
okay.
We'll let you know. You'll get a notification from us whenever any results are going to be announced.
Yes, ma'am.
Any which ways, how did you all find the classes? How tomorrow being the last session? So since we have some time today, you all can let us know. How did you all find the session? How did you all find the chapter?
Nice, ma'am. Because only the limited students are there, and we can ask doubts easily. You can also respond. So it is a live class, no, ma'am.
So were you all able to understand things?
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, when the doubt arises, we can ask, no, ma'am. So that doubt will be get clarified on at that time only.
Correct.
And we can note that point also in the book simultaneously.
Okay, so tomorrow we'll start with debentures. Take up a few questions so that you also have an idea as to how to write answers to questions and how you answer different questions. And then we'll wind up the session tomorrow. So tomorrow, see you all at 2 o'clock. Thank you.